Jams, jams, jams. Picture books and jams. Welcome, everybody, to PBJamz.
Good afternoon or good evening whenever you're joining us for PBJamz. We are super glad that you are here to join us. Today we have with us Rekha, Rajan, and she has a brand new book out, and she's going to talk with us about it and some other upcoming things today. So we're super happy. There it is. This is Music Drums. So this is the first of 4, and we're going to be talking with Rekha a few more times on PBJamz, hopefully, if that works out. But today we're going to talk about this one, all about drums. So welcome, Rekha. Thank you for being here.
Thank you so much. You're absolutely delightful.
So
and to do a YouTube channel dedicated to books about music is extraordinary.
It's been such a fun endeavor. I love getting to meet all of you wonderful authors and sharing about these books with musical connections. And this one is super fun. I told Rekha that I was on Amazon earlier today and kind of taking a look at the or listened to the Audible clip and a look at some of the sample pages, and it just looks fabulous. I haven't had a chance to read it because it's just come out 2 days ago. Is that right? Just a couple of days.
Yes, and your signed copy is on the way, but it is very, very interactive, really just accessible for children, and we'll show the fun drum piece at the end.
Yes. Yeah. So you might notice that this is a board book, but in the stuff that I'm linking up below, I mean, there's tons of ways to use this, whether you are working with very young kids, like it's targeted, you know, basically 0 to 3, but you could use it in a music classroom. You could use it in a preschool setting. There is just really no limit to the ways that you could use this book. So let's dive in, Rekha, and talk to us to begin with about where did this idea come from and how did you come to write this book, This Is Music?
So I've been an early childhood music educator for over 20 years. That was my background. I started as an opera musical theater performer, and my mom was a Montessori teacher for about 30 some years.
Wow.
And if you look at Maria Montessori's curriculum, music is embedded into her methodology, where in a lot of early childhood curriculum and philosophers, it's not there. And she was also an actress and a drama teacher and loves all that. So she's back when my goodness, I was 18, 19. She's like, come into my classroom and play music and, you know, introduce the kids to all these songs, be my accompanist, and let's do musicals together. And so that was really the spark for me of seeing how powerful music was for young children, because it was for me. My mom says, you know, I used to dance to the rhythm of the typewriter in the basement or the, you know, washing machine, but I didn't have the educational background or full understanding of child development yet. I was just teaching and bringing music in because I loved it.
Right.
So fast forward over 20 years, that's been the basic crux of my research, is why it's so important, how it's part of a child's healthy development, how it's really a holistic approach to understanding education.
Yeah.
And even more so in the last few years with the pandemic and challenges we've had, that music really helps support that social emotional piece for young children. Especially I think about my niece who I'm going to go visit. She was maybe 2 when the pandemic started. How does she even understand facial expressions, how people interact? But she loves drums. And so this book is actually dedicated to her. She just loves drums, loves making rhythm, finds beats everywhere. So the way this project started, in addition to, you know, how any book kind of evolves, was I worked with my agent and I said, I'd really love to do a music series as a music educator for young children. And so I put together this proposal. It was almost 3 pages long of multiple different projects. And we shared it exclusively with Penguin Random House. They have this wonderful imprint called Rise, which I think is the perfect word because it's all about uplifting children. So they want them to see themselves in the book, have things that are accessible in the book, make it something that families will want to grab and engage in every day. And this was the idea that they love the most. I said it's going to be this basic introduction to what instruments are,
right?
But also take it in a global approach, but then bring it back to you don't need to spend thousands of dollars on instruments. Your belly is a drum, your
Right.
table is a drum, the slide is a drum, the bathtub is a drum. I mean,
Right.
I can't, anybody who has little children knows they're doing something in the bathtub.
Yes.
With the bubbles or the drums or drawing or whatever. So I wanted it to be a way for families to know that music exists around you and really recognize how important music is to all of us, regardless of your age.
Yeah, absolutely. So many great points in what you said. And yeah, anybody who, I don't have personal kids, but I've been teaching for 24 years. And so, you have those kids that are constantly drumming and, with their pencils or,
Yep.
On the desk. I mean, it is very natural. It is very inherent in, I think, all of us as human beings, and giving kids a way to access that and to use it. Just really wonderful. So we've talked a good bit already about the musical connections. Can you unpack it just a little bit more? So I know that as I was looking through, I saw different types of drums that were mentioned in there and the cultures from which they came, and also a consistent emphasis on keeping the beat. So maybe talk about those couple of things, and if there's anything else that you'd like to address regarding the musical connections in the book.
Yeah, so part of this project was also to really, it's based on my own research over 20 years of, how children need to really start to learn instruments. My belief, and from my own research, is you don't just put a child in a room and say, this is how you do it. You give them a chance to explore. Right. And explore what sounds they could make. In my experience, if I give a basic drum, children will play on the top, they'll play on the sides, they'll turn it upside down, they'll see what sounds they could make. And so it's part based on my own, 20 years of research, but it's also, I have two very good friends who are wonderful percussionists. Mm. And so every page, every script, every word, I said, please tell me that I'm not doing percussionists wrong. Because we know as music educators, there's so many instruments, there's so many ways to teach them. There's so many different, pedagogies and philosophies. But ultimately what I came down to was, when I teach preschool music, what is it that I'm doing? What is it that I want my kiddos to leave the classroom with? And it's that idea of understanding, hearing, and collaboratively being able to keep the beat. Yeah. And so for me, that became the refrain. Is this coming out backwards for you?
No, it's not.
It's coming backwards for me. Zoom is so fun. So that became the refrain, because it was really important to say, this is a drum. And what do you use it for? What's its purpose? You use it to keep the beat. What's its purpose? Again, a lot of research went into this because drums serve many purposes. Right. I mean, they can be a rhythmic accent in an orchestra. They can be a solo performance. They can be something that you just need to do at home to get your tension out. But that beat is what ended up being really important to it. And so this one was one of my favorite spreads. We went back and forth on this, because when they first wanted to do the drum kit, and then there's also, is it a drum kit or a drum set? There's also different ways we talk about instruments that we have to acknowledge. And I wanted it to be from the perspective that you're actually sitting.
I love that. In
front of the drum set. Yeah. And so this was actually flipped. And again, with help from my wonderful percussionist friends, we were able to just keep moving along. And then I had to think about what drums. I mean, I could have included hundreds, but we wanted to do, Afro-Cuban instruments and really represent different cultures, a marching band, helping children understand that you can wear a drum.
That's right.
How fun is that?
Yeah, super
fun. You don't think you can do that. And, for me, my family coming from India, I really wanted to include the tabla and just make sure that, children understood that there's drums. And I hopefully, this book is read all over the world. And my husband actually, after this happened, he went to India for a family event. It was, but he brought back tablas for me, which I'd never owned.
Oh,
and
nice.
It was a blessing, and they're beautiful. And it's just drums come in so many forms, and keeping the beat ended up being that refrain. So that was the tie-in and how that emerged.
Yeah, and I love that for teachers in the classroom. Like I said, even though it's a board book, like it's very accessible too for K2 music teachers, and even maybe up beyond that, especially as you talk about introducing those different types of drums. So I love that you have those two things, because I think for teachers in the classroom, it really makes it very user friendly, all the way up through, at least through second grade. I can certainly see myself using that in my classroom to talk about percussion and the different types of drums. So I love all of that. So we're going to ask you in a second about upcoming things. And I know you have some other projects to share. But before we get to that last question, I just want to see if there's anything else that you want to share with us about this book before we move on to talk about your upcoming projects.
Yeah, I have to share a couple of things. My children are 8, 10, and now 13, and they all, like, we did a video, they all play instruments. That's part of my requirement actually for them. You're going to go to school, you're going to, you know, do well in all of your core academic subjects, but you're also going to study an instrument. And I'm not forcing it on them. Like, my daughter studied viola, and then she was in choir, and she said, Mom, I think I want to just focus on the viola. And I said, great, find your instrument. My oldest plays the ukulele, and my youngest has perfect pitch, which he doesn't even know that he has, right. But he can like match the doorbell and everything. It's amazing.
That's awesome. Yeah,
it is. But music is, I think we take it for granted sometimes, how important music is to our lives, how it helps us when we're happy, when we're sad, when we're angry, when we're frustrated, celebrating. And all I can hope with this project is that, you know, if we as adults love music so much, how amazing it is for a young child to connect with an instrument, and what that must feel like, and how you keep the beat or feel the rhythm or pluck the strings, or, you know, the horns or voice, and all that's in this series. That was the purpose for me. But I have to add one thing. My dad is not an avid reader. My mom is what people would call a super reader, a term coined by Alan Boyko, former, you know, president of Scholastic Book Fairs and such an amazing leader. But my dad doesn't read, other than a car magazine. He's a car guy. But he read this book to the point of you saying, like, it's not just for kids. And his favorite part was this part. Which of these are drums?
Oh, love it.
And he came to me yesterday and he said, I love that cake is not a drum. Okay, Dad. In your 70s. Thank you for that. But it's a really fun book. This is the piece in the end where there's an instrument in the book. And what makes me so proud is it's an editor pick on Amazon for best book of the month for, you know, birth through age 2 or 3.
Right.
It's also their #1 new release.
Right.
But here's the thing. The category you would expect it to be is #1 new release children's books or something. It's #1 new release in children's musical instruments.
Oh.
Isn't that fun? Like, for me,
that's nice. Yeah.
a book, yes. So to have children and families and parents recognize that books could be instruments, and
yeah.
that to me was the best part of all of it.
Yeah, it was a couple of weeks. Oh, well, I say a couple. It's been a few weeks ago. I had Melanie Ellsworth. I don't know if you're familiar with her book, Clarinet and Trumpet, but the publisher built a little rain stick into the spine of the book.
Oh.
And so that was, again, it was so cool because the book itself was an instrument. Not only did it talk about all these great instruments, but then it actually, you could shake it and actually use it as a rain stick. So I think that's phenomenal that more and more we're getting not only these fabulous books, but that they're really so interactive that kids are actually experiencing music and not just reading about it.
Yeah. And you know why, for me, I work with a nonprofit, phenomenal nonprofit now called Bring Me a Book Foundation, and they're all about distributing books and book access. And they talk about literacy lives and how do you build a reading habit. And I have, you know, other projects I'm going to talk to you about, but we also talk about musical literacy.
Yeah.
Not just the ability to read notes, but to discern different instruments, right. To be able to, how can you tell the difference between a drum and a violin if you've right. never heard them? And so that's part of this book too. And there are activities after the ebook and the audible recordings that have children engage in, do you think this is a drum? Is this a drum? Yes or no? Because that oral training is central to helping you develop your musicianship. So that to me was a big piece of this as well. And it's just been a fabulous, wonderful project. But yeah, just getting the combination with, you know, early literacy and music literacy and combining it, this book, you know, for me was a dream project.
Yeah. And that piece that you're talking about with the listening skills, like I have thought my whole entire career, I mean, I've been doing this for 24 years, but I think listening skills they've just been left behind so much. And I think now, especially between the pandemic and the heavy focus on video games, and not that there's anything wrong with video games, right? But I just think kids have kind of lost that attention span and that ability to listen. And I think music is a key place where we can really build that back in to our homes and into the curriculum and really teach kids, again, to be good listeners. And so that's a fabulous point you bring up about that positive side of it.
Yes,
So
yes, thank you.
Yeah, I want to talk about what's coming next for you. So what else can we expect? What's coming?
Well, it's the first in a 4-book series. So Horns is coming at the end of the month, and there's a cute little blowhole in there for kids to
I love it.
Practice. Because again, you can tap on the drum in here, but with horns and playing, you know, any kind of woodwind or brass instrument, it's about lungs and breathing and all of that. And it's a fun introduction for them to be able to, again, interact with the book. Yeah. The next one will be strings. I'm not sure if there's just going to be one string to pluck or 2 or 3, but in my research, I found so many instruments that have just one string.
Right. Right.
Which I honestly didn't know. And I thought that was beautiful. Yeah. And then with voice, being voice is my main instrument. Yeah. And what I've studied, when they asked, what do you want to be the interactive piece? I wanted a mirror.
Oh yeah. I love that. Yeah.
Because all of my years of vocal training, my voice instructor was like, stand up and look in the mirror. Right. See how you look, see your posture, see your face, see how your lips are shaped. And so I'm very excited about those, the rest of them coming out. I also have multiple series coming out with Scholastic. There is a series called Disaster Squad. That's about a family of 4 with their German Shepherd named Lucky, totally inspired by our German Shepherd named Lucky. She doesn't rescue anybody. She just chases butterflies. But really, she's like, I'm like, can you go rescue my child in the forest or something like, or I don't know, fetch your own bowl. She's like a puppy, and but German Shepherds have this presence, right? And that's a very fun series. That was a collaborative process through Scholastic. And it's really timely because the first book coming out next year, and it's for K through 3rd grade, you know, but also I also encourage everybody to read everything.
Exactly.
I mean, I have middle grade books and picture books in my purse or suitcase or wherever I'm going all the time. Right. But that series is really fun because it's all about how they help people during disasters. So how did you help people during the California wildfires, hurricanes in Texas, and it's all still happening. It's very much about climate change. Yeah. I have a very fun picture book coming out next year called Can You Dance Like a Peacock? And about how animals actually dance and move to communicate. So a peacock has a very specific dance for mating. A dung beetle, you know, moves around 360 degrees on its pile of poop before it eats it. Right. And the sea slug that dances to, you know, distract its, you know, the predator that might be coming after. It's a fun story. And then, of course, I'm very, very excited about the Read Aloud Factor that's coming in October. And that was very, very heavily researched. It was actually a project that was based off of a book called Read Aloud Basics. And I was really just invited to revise it. But that book was published about 10 years ago. And the ways in which we read aloud, the books that we have, the ways we use technology have changed. Yeah. Like 10 years ago, we would have said, you don't read on a device, like get off device, TVs are bad, whatever. But now we have e-readers and interactive books on, you know, all these smart devices. And I think it's important for parents to know it also includes brain research that I did in collaboration with my husband and his group at Rush University that actually shows, using MRI data, that actually shows the more frequently you are read aloud to as a child, the healthier your brain is 60 years later.
That is amazing. Not surprising, but amazing.
Right. It's not surprising for those of us that know it, but you need that data to be able to say, guess what? We need books. And it also included storytelling, playing games, making music. But of all the activities that the participants were asked to reflect on, it was being read to that had the biggest impact on your brain. Isn't that incredible?
That is awesome.
That it like changes your life over 60 years.
Yeah. Like literally.
So those are the fun things. Yes. So those are the fun things I'm looking forward to, and obviously other projects. But yeah.
That is fabulous. So much good stuff coming from Rekha. You guys keep your eyes out for her. She's going to be back with us on PBJamz to talk about horns and strings and voice too. So we're going to unpack those and give you some great ways to use them as well as they come out. So she'll be back with us. But before we leave today, we were going to do a little drumming activity, right?
Yes, of course.
I have. Yeah.
You leave. We'll do a call and response. Yours are beautiful.
I have my bongos.
I have my djembe.
Jamming PBs all the time. PB Jams. Jams, jams, jams. Picture books and jams.